Julia Roberts was once the highest-paid actress in Hollywood. She made $20 million for a single movie, but her last big hit was over a decade ago. Her recent films are complete disaster by her standards. She's been forced to move to Netflix just to get work. Even worse, she's been battling a rare blood disorder since 2002 that could kill her at any moment. At 56, Hollywood doesn't know what to do with her anymore. Her golden era is clearly over. Julia Roberts was born on October 28, 1967 in Smyrna, Georgia. But her story didn't begin like most. Before she ever stepped foot on a movie set, her family had already made history. Her parents ran the Atlanta Actors and Writers Workshop, which was one of the first acting schools in the South that welcomed both black and white students during segregation. In 1965, they accepted Yolanda King, the daughter of Martin Luther King Jr., into their program. That bold decision came with real danger. People in the neighborhood threatened them. They lost support from their community. But they stood firm. They taught acting in an old church, pushing back against the racism around them. Julia was too young to understand any of this at the time, but that environment would shape the way she saw the world. When Julia was born at Crawford Long Hospital, her parents were struggling financially. The hospital bill was $1,286, a big number back then. They couldn't pay it. But then something incredible happened. Martin Luther King Jr. and Coretta Scott King stepped in and quietly paid the entire bill. They did it as a thank you for what Julia's parents had done for their daughter. It wasn't something they ever made public. Julia herself didn't share that story until she turned 55 in 2022. She said Coretta even came to the hospital herself on November 2, 1967, to make sure the payment went through. Just months later, Martin Luther King Jr. was assassinated. That connection between civil rights giants and a future Hollywood star remained a quiet secret for decades. Julia's early years weren't peaceful. Her parents divorced in 1971, just before she turned 4. Her mother said it was due to mental cruelty. Her father said she had abandoned the family. Court battles dragged on for months. Then not even a year later, Julia's mother married a man named Michael Moats. He wasn't like her father. He had a temper. He worked factory jobs and moved the family to cheaper homes. Sometimes they had to move again just months later. Julia, her brother Eric, and sister Lisa were constantly walking on eggshells. At school, Julia became withdrawn. Teachers noticed she missed classes and often seemed afraid. She even developed a stutter that didn't go away until she was 9. Speech therapy helped, but in a way, acting helped more. It gave her a voice when she felt she had none. In 1978, tragedy struck. Julia's father Walter died of throat cancer. She was just 10. He had kept his illness hidden from her, trying to protect her, but the grief hit hard. Julia stopped talking. She couldn't sleep. Her grades dropped. Her father had been her safe place, and now he was gone. He had left her cassette tapes of bedtime stories he recorded before he died. She listened to them every night until they wore out. When she was 13, her father's death left a hole that never really closed. Acting became a way to deal with that pain, a way to express what she didn't have words for in real life. Meanwhile, things at home got worse. Her mother's marriage to Moats was falling apart. Police were called to their house multiple times. Her siblings moved out as soon as they could. Julia stayed. In 1976, her half-sister Nancy was born. Years later, Nancy would struggle with addiction and take her own life in 2014. After 9 years, Julia's mother finally left Moats. She filed for divorce in 1981, calling the marriage abusive. After that, she focused on healing. She started a new acting school and even volunteered at a women's shelter. Julia was 14, and though her life was still full of scars, she began to grow stronger. Her mother became fiercely protective of her, especially as Julia began to dream bigger. In high school, Julia thought she'd become a vet. She loved animals and was good at biology. But something kept pulling her toward performance. She played the clarinet, acted in school plays, and even fainted during a fraud dissection, only to land the lead in a play that same day. She spent hours after school writing scripts in her science notebooks. Her old vet said she didn't come to his clinic to watch surgeries, she came to watch the people she was already training to be an actress without even knowing it. In 1985, just after graduating, Julia packed her bags and moved to New York City. She had $628 saved and shared a tiny apartment with her sister Lisa. It was cold, the heating broke, sometimes they slept in their coats. Julia couldn't afford the subway, so she walked for miles. She ate cheap food and went to 3 or 4 auditions a day. She was rejected over 200 times before landing her first commercial for Clearl. That $825 paycheck changed everything. It gave her a SAG card, the ticket to real auditions. Back home in Georgia, Julia had a strange childhood ritual. Starting at age 7, she would lock herself in the bathroom and practice giving Oscar speeches. She used shampoo bottles or perfume jars as fake trophies. She even recorded herself to study how she sounded. She wrote down over 40 speeches in a leather journal. Even when her family lost power and had to use candles, she kept practicing. She once told her brother, "When I win my Oscar, I'll thank you third." And when she finally did win in 2001, she kept that promise. Her first real acting job was on a TV show called Crime Story in 1987. She had the flu, a 103 degrees fever, but didn't want to miss it. She did the scene in one take. Everyone on set knew she had something special. But things didn't get easy overnight. She auditioned nonstop, landed a role in Firehouse, and even got burned by a special effects mishap. She didn't quit. She worked 16 straight hours. At one point, she was so broke she sold her grandfather's pocket watch to pay rent. She bought it back 3 years later for almost 8 times the price after she became a star. In 1988, while filming Satisfaction, 19-year-old Julia met Liam Neeson, who was 35. At first they didn't get along. Then filming got delayed and something shifted. They started dating and moved in together just 3 weeks later. People in Hollywood didn't like it. Julia lost a big ad deal because of the relationship. She even got rejected for a movie role because of it. But she didn't care. Liam opened her mind to new ideas. He gave her books to read, 27 of them. It was like college. The relationship didn't last, but the breakup gave her a depth of emotion she poured into Steel Magnolia. She won her first Golden Globe and got nominated for an Oscar. What people didn't see was the pain behind that success. To prepare for Shelby's diabetic seizure scene, Roberts didn't sleep for 47 hours straight. It wasn't some crazy stunt. It was a suggestion from co-star Sally Field to help her get into character. It worked, but it pushed Roberts to the edge. During the emotional funeral scene, she locked herself away in her hotel room for 3 days, eating only saltine crackers and drinking water. She wanted to look as grief-stricken as Shelby was supposed to feel. The director, Herbert Ross, didn't make things easier. On January 17, 1989, after a difficult take, he shouted at her saying it was the worst acting he had ever seen. Roberts was so crushed she left the set and didn't come back for 6 hours. Despite being part of an ensemble cast, Roberts was only on screen for 38 minutes. That made her Oscar nomination even more surprising. One of the film's most powerful moments, her breakdown after a medical emergency, was done in one take. The tears were real. She later said she wasn't acting in that moment, she was grieving. And while her career was rising fast, so was her love life. Around the same time, she got engaged to Dylan McDermott. They met during the first table read of Steel Magnolias. On November 28, 1988, he passed her a note that said, "You have the most beautiful eyes I've ever seen." Just 19 days later, he proposed at the Russian TA room in New York with an emerald ring that had belonged to his grandmother. They moved into a small apartment in the West Village, paying $1,800 a month. Neighbors saw them living like a normal couple. Julia shopped for groceries. Dylan walked their three-legged rescue dog. But their connection went deeper than that. When Roberts was close to being dropped from Pretty Woman, McDermott called the director himself and convinced him to keep her. But fame has a cost. As Roberts became more famous, their private life disappeared. On March 12, 1990, 2 weeks before Pretty Woman premiered, she canceled their June wedding. A tabloid had offered their doorman $25,000 just to get into their apartment. That was the final straw. She realized she couldn't have both a normal life and superstardom. Ironically, Pretty Woman almost didn't have her in the first place. The role of Vivian was offered to 7 other actresses first. Michelle Pfeiffer turned it down on February 7, 1989. Molly Ringwald passed on it in March. Meg Ryan said no after reading the script. Daryl Hannah thought it romanticized prostitution. Jennifer Jason Leigh didn't find the character deep enough. Valeria Golino was too busy. Karen Allen didn't like the age gap. Finally, Roberts auditioned on April 3. Director Gary Marshall liked something about her. He called it her luminous vulnerability. But even then, Richard Gere wasn't interested. Marshall got them together at Gere's apartment. Roberts slipped him a post-it note, "Please say yes." That was the moment it all changed. Their chemistry was instant, and it convinced Gere to join the film. It turned into one of the most iconic movie pairings of all time. Yet Roberts wasn't exactly paid like a star for Pretty Woman. She earned just $300,000. After taxes and agent fees, that came out to about $273 a day. She stayed in a hotel that cost $75 a night. Meanwhile, Gere got $5 million plus a cut of the profits, which eventually earned him around $12 million. The movie was a massive hit. It opened on March 23, 1990 and made $11.3 million in its first weekend. That's more than 37 times what she was paid. It stayed in theaters for 16 weeks and ended up making $463.4 million worldwide. Her red opera dress became a fashion sensation, spawning $30 million worth of knockoff sales. The VHS sold 2.8 million copies at nearly $90 each. Even tourism at Rodeo Drive went up 27%. But Roberts didn't see much of that money. Disney executives got bonuses, she got a lesson. By 1993, she charged $10 million for the Pelican Brief. In 2000, she became the first woman to get $20 million for a single role, Erin Brockovich, changing Hollywood paychecks forever. Still, not everything was going right in her personal life. After Dylan McDermott, Roberts fell in love again, this time with Kiefer Sutherland. They met while filming Flatliners. By August 1990, they were engaged and planning a massive wedding for June 14, 1991. Roberts bought an $8,000 dress and $425 Manolo Blahnik shoes. It was going to be a Hollywood fairy tale. But the fairy tale fell apart. In May 1991, a 24-year-old exotic dancer named Amanda Rice told the London Sun she had been involved with Sutherland. She said he had left Roberts and moved into a hotel with her. Then she claimed he called Roberts an insecure ice princess. Later, she changed her story, saying it was only platonic. But the damage was done. Roberts was hospitalized shortly after that, supposedly for the flu. But people wondered, was it really the flu, or stress? She stayed in the hospital for 5 days. Even then, she kept wearing her engagement ring. It seemed like the wedding might still happen. Then came the final twist. Just 3 days before the wedding, Roberts canceled everything. Sutherland didn't even hear it from her, someone else told him while he was moving out of their Beverly Hills home. She was with Jason Patrick, Sutherland's best friend. On the day they were supposed to get married, Roberts flew to Ireland with Patrick. The media exploded. She was branded the runaway bride years before she played one on screen. Later, she said she had planned to end things kindly, but Sutherland called her first and was nasty about it. Years later, Sutherland said she had the courage to walk away, and he respected that. Just 2 years after that public mess, Roberts got married, this time to country singer Lyle Lovett. The marriage shocked everyone and didn't last long, only from 1993 to 1995. It felt like a reaction to everything that came before. She had gone from fleeing one wedding to rushing into another. Eventually, Roberts found something real. In 2002, she married cinematographer Danny M. They've been together for over 20 years. They have 3 kids, twins Hazel and Phineas, born in 2004, and Henry, born in 2007. After all the drama, heartbreak, and public chaos, she found peace, something she never had when she was the most famous woman in the world. Meanwhile, the 1994 movie I Love Trouble was supposed to be a light, fun romantic comedy. Instead, it turned into a behind-the-scenes disaster. The reason? Julia Roberts and Nick Nolte hated each other. And it wasn't just normal tension, it was full-blown war. Right from the start, things went wrong. The moment they met, they clashed. They didn't just argue, they avoided each other so much that they ended up filming most of their scenes with stand-ins. Julia admitted in a New York Times interview that they got on each other's nerves. Then she added something that shocked everyone: Nolte could be charming, but he was also completely disgusting and even seemed to go out of his way to repel people. That was brutal. And Nolte fired back in the Los Angeles Times. He said it wasn't nice to call someone disgusting, but Julia, in his words, is not a nice person. Everyone knows that. The film flopped. Critics didn't care for it, and the audience didn't either. The off-screen drama was more memorable than anything that made it to theaters. But Julia didn't let the feud or the flop hold her back. In 1997, she made a big comeback with My Best Friend's Wedding. The film wasn't just a hit, it was a blockbuster. It opened with over $21 million in its first weekend and made nearly $300 million worldwide on just a $38 million budget. The twist? Her character didn't get the guy. And audiences loved that. It was different. Real. The film earned a 73% rating on Rotten Tomatoes and became one of the year's top 10 biggest movies. It showed everyone that Julia Roberts was still a star. Then came 1999. That year, she didn't just prove herself again, she completely dominated. In May, she starred in Notting Hill with Hugh Grant. It made $364 million globally and became the highest-grossing British film ever at the time. Just 10 weeks later, she reunited with Richard Gere for Runaway Bride. That movie opened with $35 million, one of the biggest romantic comedy openings ever. It ended up pulling in more than $309 million worldwide. Critics weren't impressed. But audiences didn't care. People loved seeing Roberts and Gere back together. That same year, Roberts made history with Erin Brockovich. She became the first woman in Hollywood to be paid $20 million for a single film. Up until then, only big male stars like Tom Cruise and Mel Gibson had crossed that line. Roberts wasn't just cashing a big paycheck, she was taking a risk. The role was serious. She played a single mom who helped take down a powerful energy company. It was a bold move away from romantic comedies. The gamble paid off. The film earned over $200 million globally and the performance changed everything. Roberts won the Academy Award for Best Actress. It was her third nomination and this time she took home the gold. She also won a Golden Globe, a BAFTA and a Screen Actors Guild Award. It was a total sweep. She even joked during her Oscar speech that she was going to take her time on stage. She'd earned it. Her momentum didn't stop there. By 2001, Roberts's films had brought in more than $3.9 billion worldwide, and she didn't need superhero movies or big franchises to do it. In fact, aside from the Ocean's 11 series, she avoided franchises completely. Instead, she kept delivering hits on her own. Julia Roberts had just married Danny Moder in July 2002. She was 35, newly in love and fresh off her Oscar win for Erin Brockovich, but within weeks something felt wrong. She was tired all the time. Her skin showed black and blue marks without reason. Danny noticed. He pushed her to see a doctor. Tests followed and the result shook her world. Doctors told her she had idiopathic thrombocytopenic purpura ITP for short. It's a rare blood disorder. Only 3.3 adults out of every 100,000 get it. The disease causes dangerously low platelet levels, which means your blood can't clot properly. For Julia, it wasn't just scary, it was heartbreaking. At that moment her biggest dream was to be a mother, but the diagnosis made that feel uncertain. Still, she didn't give up. 2 years later she gave birth to twins Hazel and Phineas. Then in 2007 her son Henry was born. Despite her illness, Julia became a mother of 3. She didn't let the condition define her. The truth is, Danny may have saved her life. He spotted the symptoms before she even knew something was seriously wrong. Her unexplained bruises and fatigue weren't just stress or tiredness, they were signs of a bigger problem. When her platelet count dropped far below the normal range of 150,000 to 450,000 per micromolar of blood, doctors jumped into action. If left untreated, she could have faced internal bleeding even in the brain. Danny's quick thinking changed everything. The disease itself is tricky. Her immune system had turned on her. It started attacking her own platelets as if they were enemies. No one knows exactly why. Maybe it was stress, maybe genetics, but the timing made sense. Her life was under a microscope. Her marriage, her fame, everything. Her body under pressure betrayed her. She had to be careful every day. Even a small cut could be dangerous. Sometimes internal bleeding could happen with no warning. Doctors monitored her constantly, especially when her platelet count neared 20,000, the danger zone. Any lower and a fall or bump could be life-threatening. To fight it, Julia started a long list of treatments. First came steroids like prednisone. They helped but brought side effects: weight gain, mood swings, puffiness. Being in the spotlight made that even harder. When those weren't enough, she added IVIG therapy. It took hours and had to be done around her film schedule. Later she used newer drugs like romoplastim and elrambopag, which helped her body make more platelets. In the worst moments she relied on rituximab, a strong drug that wiped out the bad immune cells. All this wasn't cheap. Her treatments could cost over $150,000 per year, but she kept working. She kept showing up to sets, premieres, and award shows. Behind the scenes she juggled motherhood scripts and medical charts. She kept it quiet. That was the most impressive part. Julia is known around the world, but almost no one knew about her battle. She covered bruises with makeup. She scheduled shoots around flare-ups. Costume teams adjusted outfits to hide symptoms. Even close coworkers had no idea. She never wanted sympathy, she just wanted to live her life. But her personal life wasn't always so private. In the early 1990s, a custody battle tore through her family. Her brother, actor Eric Roberts, was fighting for custody of his daughter Emma, but Julia didn't back him. She supported his ex-girlfriend Kelly Cunningham. Instead, she paid for her lawyers and helped her win custody. Eric was furious. He and Julia didn't speak for over a decade. He later admitted he was in a dark place, addicted, angry, and unreliable. Losing custody was the price he paid. When Julia gave birth to her twins in 2004, Eric came to the hospital. That visit helped them start to rebuild what had been lost. Julia and Kelly formed a strange bond. They weren't friends before the custody case, but Julia stepped in. She barely knew Kelly, but saw the child in the middle of the mess. Emma later became an actress herself. Julia was part of that journey too, serving as both aunt and quiet mentor while her brother was lost in addiction. Family pain didn't end there. In 2013, Julia's half-sister Nancy Mose invited her to her wedding. Julia said no. She didn't trust NY's fiancé and refused to attend it. It wasn't just about the wedding, their relationship had always been tense. Years earlier, Julia had accused Nancy of taking secret photos of her kids. There were deep wounds. Julia's refusal hurt Nancy, who had long struggled with her weight, self-esteem, and sense of belonging. Then tragedy hit. In February 2014, Nancy was found dead in her bathtub at just 37. It was ruled a suicide. She had left several notes. The family didn't share them. Julia, who had just been nominated for an Oscar, canceled all events. She stayed home to grieve. The pain of that moment still hangs over the Roberts family. While dealing with all this, Julia's career was shifting. Once the queen of the box office, she saw her star dim. In 2016, her movie Money Monster made only $93 million worldwide. That was a far cry from her past hits. Other films like Larry Crown and Mirror Mirror also disappointed. Audiences weren't showing up like they used to. The golden run of her $20 million paydays was ending. And then, in 2011, another blow. Ads she did for L'Oreal were banned in the UK. The reason? too much airbrushing. Lawmakers said the images were fake. Julia, once praised for her natural beauty, was now part of a larger debate about unrealistic beauty standards. People question why a woman like her needed digital help to sell makeup. With theaters changing and fewer roles coming her way, she made a new move. In 2023, she starred in Leave the World Behind, a thriller released on Netflix. She worked alongside stars like Mahershala Ali and Ethan Hawke. The streaming service paid her $25 million, the same as her peak film salaries. But now, she didn't have to worry about box office numbers. Millions watched from home. It was a smart pivot, and it paid off. Her last Oscar nomination came in 2014 for August, Osage County. She played a fierce daughter opposite Meryl Streep. It was a dark, emotional role. She didn't win, but it reminded everyone of her talent. Since then, awards have been quiet. Unlike stars like Cate Blanchett or Sandra Bullock, she hasn't returned to the stage with a major hit. Some wonder if she's waiting for the right script or if Hollywood just doesn't know what to do with women in their 50s.